My family history is very interesting. Where my family has migrated from um, to continue to add to this lineage in which I'm involved. Um, my great great grandfather was from Cork County, Ireland, born sometime in the early 1800s. But around 1820, um, he was about in his mid 20s. Uh, he actually was kicked out of Cork County, Ireland, and was excommunicated and ended up immigrating to Kingston, Jamaica in the in the early to mid 1830s. Um, it was then that he lived for years, and then he met his wife, um, whose name is unknown, but all that is known is that she was an ex-slave from Angola. Um, they were married, and she was poor and she was an ex-slave, but they lived in Kingston for years. They started the O'Day clan, and that's why my grandmother's maiden last name was O apostrophe D-A-Y, which was later changed to just Day because of some legal issues. Um, but they lived there, both working on plantations, earning little to no money, but still survived. They had a few offspring, then they had more offspring, and that is where my grandmother comes from. I do know that my grandmother's mother is from Grenada, which is another place in the Caribbean. So I've got Angola, Cork County Island, Grenada, Jamaica. So far that lineage is um, crazy. And then in 1834 they had an Emancipation Act which allowed slaves over the age of 6 to immediately be freed. Soon after, if not most of all of the adults had been freed as well. That's why you had a lot of ex-slaves and immigrants from Ireland and other parts of Europe who had immigrated to the island of Jamaica working on sugar and coffee plantations because there was a shortage of labor. And also in Ireland, in the early 1920s and 30s, there had also been a shortage of food. A lot of people were poor and couldn't afford food. They were on potato diets, very strict potato diets. Potato diets. They ate potatoes all day, every day, because there was no way that that land was being cultivated to produce crops that they could then eat to sustain themselves. So, and there was a lot of war, and political and social situations, and that had allowed for the people to not be fed properly, and so you had a lot of people moving for better opportunities to make money. Um, so the O'Day clan, there had been three children um, originally, and then they produced another set of offspring. My grandmother was born in Kingston, Jamaica, but she actually was in boarding school from a very young age, and she went to boarding school in St. Kitts until the age of 15, where she moved um, to Savannah, Georgia, which is a low country southern region that had Gullah communities, which were Gullah people were descendants of of Angolan Africans, which is interestingly enough that my great great grandmother was from Angola and she was an ex-slave. So it's interesting that my grandmother and her family, her brothers and sisters, and her mom and dad moved to uh, Geechee communities, which were communities, especially in Georgia, that upheld the cultural um, and linguistic heritage of the people from different parts of the Africa, especially Angola, because Angola was where the Gullah people were or said to be derived from. So that is cool. And then, yeah. So the Gullah communities were really there to preserve much of the African heritage that were distinctive to the Geechee communities. They preserved the language, the culture, the heritage, the Angolan culture, heritage, history, geography. They were said to be descendants of enslaved Angolan Africans, um, living in regions like South Carolina and Georgia. My grandmother went to Savannah State University, which she got a scholarship because in boarding school she was very intelligent, very smart. So she moved her way up and she got great grades. Her brother, my great grandfather, all they emigrated in the late 1920s to Georgia and these Geechee communities, and she went to school for a few years. She became pregnant a few years later after getting into school, had two children, got married, got divorced, and then she met my grandfather in Arkansas, and he's from DeWitt, and his kin are from DeWitt, Arkansas, which is a very rural part of Arkansas. It's like the deep south, and yeah, they got married and had all of my aunts and uncles who had all of my cousins, and then there was me and all my brothers and sisters. And so that is my lineage traced back all the way to the early 1800s. So that's exciting to know that my family history is very interesting and diverse. So that's pretty cool. So there is my family history vlog, I guess. Okay.